Today we're looking at Young Adult Protagonist School of Magic, the board game. Wait, no, sorry. Weirdwood Manor. I always get those two names confused. And the premise of Weirdwood Manor is this. You are fittingly one of these magical young adult protagonists, and you have stumbled into Weirdwood Manor. It doesn't matter. Lady Weirdwood in the manor is getting attacked by all sorts of villains, at least 3 of them. These 3 villains. And it's up to you to put a stop to them and punch them in the head until they're dead. Each of the villains has their own sort of win condition if they achieve that before you punch them in the head until they're dead, which is surprisingly hard to do when one of them is already dead. Well, then you win the game. If not, they win the game. It's a cooperative game with a design philosophy for people who don't like co-op games. It takes place on this big circular modular board where every turn time will shift, and so will the doorways, and therefore so will the rooms that you have access to. And that's one of the core components of the game, is that these rooms and the access to them will shift, and that being very dependent upon how you play your cards. Everybody's going to have a hand of 5 cards, or 3 cards, or 1 card, depending upon how much health you have in the game, and on your turn, you get to play 1 card. Very simple. You take your card, you play it above your player board, in one of the slots of morning, day, evening, and night, and then you move this inner ring to that corresponding symbol. If you can't move it to that symbol without going around a full day, well, congratulations, you just made a colossal screw up and you cost your whole team a day. If all 12 days run out and you haven't defeated the villain, that's also how you lose. These cards are very simple. They basically let you do 3 things: move, attack, and defend. 4 things, and gain resources. The key element to this game is going to be movement. Whenever you move into a room, you get to take that action. So in a sense, it's like action selection, but limited action selection, because you're limited by where the doorways are and how you can connect to things. There's no sort of movement points where you have to be close to different doors to move. No, just as long as the doors are open, you can run your little adult protagonist as far as they can go in one movement, go into the room, pull that library book off the shelf, go, aha, I am Hermione, I know all the knowledge, and then run to another room and say, aha, I am Artemis Fowl, I know all the knowledge, and do the things in the room. The rooms will give you more resources, which then you can use to chain your special abilities, or you can use to purchase new dice, which you then get to forge in battle, or you can garner experience points, where you can go up on 3 various tracks on your player board, which give you bonuses. But your whole goal is defeating the threat of the villain and also the little scarab minions that are running around. And this kind of is a little bit reminiscent of Pandemic, because every time you take a turn, the monster will then take a turn. And the monster can move, the monster can attack people, and the monster can also spawn these little scarabs who are going to run around the board trying to destroy those rooms and those precious action spaces that you want to go to. Because if you have no spots left on your board to place any cards, well, then, at the end of your turn, you have to refresh, but refreshing comes at a cost, as the scarabs sense your weakness, and they scutter all around the mansion trying to destroy rooms. If there's ever 2 scarabs in a room, that room gets blighted and gets flipped over, and you have to spend resources to flip it back over. But you do get experience points in the mix, so it's not a horrible thing. That's really the outline of the game. Play a card, do your actions, move to rooms, try to get enough dice so that when you go and attack the monster, you're dealing more than 0 damage. You can also pick up these companions along the way, which will give you special one-time abilities, and more importantly, give you an extra slot for placing cards, meaning you have to refresh 1 turn later, and it also gives you the flexibility to not have to spin that day tracker all the way around when you have misplanned, costing your team a day. You can just move it 1 step. And this is a fun game. How I decided to review this game, honestly, was I was at Breakout Con, last Breakout Con, not this one, in 2022, and I was killing time, and this was set up as a demo, and I sat down, I said, okay, yeah, show me the demo. And it was only until after the demo that I said, okay, this is fun. By the way, I have a YouTube channel, would you like me to review it? Send me a prototype copy and I'll give you free coverage. Because this game has a lot of really nice things going for it. The art style is very fun. The art style makes me want to get this back to the table. The theming of this is very fun. It's this magical, shifting mansion where you never know where the rooms are going to be, and you never know what you're going to have access to. And that as a premise feels really fun. Plus the component quality on this is really good just for a prototype. Acrylic standees, really nice dice. It seemed like it was hand-painted scarabs to give it that pizzazz, at least just for the prototype. And so after that demo, where I didn't necessarily play a full game, I was very excited to get this back to the table and to play it. And I'm still excited to talk about it. I am. If you know me at all, you know I love variable player powers, and all of the 6 characters feel fun to play, and especially when this game caps out at 4? Well, it caps out at 5, it says, but it feels like it could cap out at 4. I've really only played this at the 2 and the 3 player count, and I don't think I'd want to go too much higher than that, honestly. But because of that, it's nice to have all these fun characters who you want to see and figure out how they work. One of my favorite characters, the last game that I played, we had Bailey Breyer, who's just, you know, an anthropomorphic rabbit, and Wally, what was his name? Wally Gauntlet? No, Wally Cooper. He had a gauntlet, and Wally's special ability was basically he could steal dice from the enemy. And so I was stealing dice from all the scarabs and just wiping them all out, and then Bailey was jumping from room to room, squashing scarabs as they landed. The sense of play here is really exciting and pretty fun, and I really do appreciate and enjoy that hand management aspect of choosing where you lock in your time of day, because it matters. It does matter where you lock in the time of day and how many steps you move in, because you may lose or gain access to a specific room depending upon how far you move the track. And if you have a spot that you need to go to in that inner circle, moving the track too much can kind of screw you over. I also love seeing the companions come out. I rarely got any myself, but seeing Zach when I was playing with him get like 3 companions on his side and just having this huge flexibility of chaining his cards together. One thing I didn't mention is that each card has a little symbol in the top corner, and depending upon what it's put next to, if that makes a symbol, if that makes a specific thing, you then get that until you refresh your cards. So Zach was chaining together all of these swords, and he had this huge tableau where he was like, okay, I'm going to do some damage, but I automatically get 5 hits against this person because I've put all these swords together. And we had this huge, awesome turn to finish off the game. That was exciting, and that was really cool. Where for me this game really faltered, and this is a huge point that I hope, again, this is a prototype copy, so I'm hopeful that it will change in development. I'm going to be watching very closely to see how this changes. This is something that I did mention, I think, when I tried it out at the demo. First I was like, oh, this might be a little thing to flag, and then my subsequent plays have only reinforced that. This game ends up being very fiddly and hard to read, and I think an art change on the dials will fix all of that. But every turn you're turning a disc, and every turn you play a card and then you shift the ring depending upon where you played the card, and so you're trying to map out what you're going to do and what rooms are going to be open, and then you play your card and you shift the wheel, and then you have to map out again what rooms are open because it isn't immediately visible which rooms are accessible. And that's just because the hallways and the doorways are too small, or the hallways don't have a bright light shining at what they're pointing or what they're opening up to be accessed. And this is a significant point because it bogs down the game. It really does when you're shifting and you're saying, okay, oh, now I can't go there. What else should we do? And you have to survey all the rooms. I love that all the rooms, the whole board is modular. And so you throw these out in random order every time. I mean, it's less impactful because you don't actually have movement points. You can access whatever you want when it's open. So it's not as modular as it may seem, but I do love that there's all these different actions, these different rooms to take, and that makes it exciting. That also makes it this sort of real co-op for people who don't like co-ops. I think that design goal has been achieved because there's so many options, plus combined with your own player powers and your own little tableau that you're building that nobody could ever quarterback. It really promotes that style of play of, yeah, I'm just going to do this, without necessarily having an in-depth conversation about it. And if you like having those in-depth conversations in a co-op and planning things out, well then, that may be a negative for you. For me, this is sort of reminiscent of how I play Spirit Island, in terms of, I say, hey, I've got this covered. What are you going to do on your turn? Just give me the general outline. And somebody would say, okay, I think I can do this. And we're like, great. Rather than trying to min-max your entire turn and figure out the optimal efficiency. It's more a frenetic, okay, I'm going to go here, do this thing, monster reacts, and do this thing, monster reacts. And that's the feeling that I like from this game. That's the feeling that I want of this fun atmosphere of you having agency in your own character and not really worrying about what's happening and not really being able to reverse time and think, oh, I guess I should have gone there because the wheels of time keeps turning. All of that is really good stuff. However, when you can't immediately identify which buildings are open and which rooms are open, that bogs this down and it loses that sense of pace and it loses that sense of urgency. And then it becomes a slower game, and I don't think this plays well as a slower game. It plays well in that sort of, whoa, what's going to happen? Excitement, exciting moments, going to do different actions, always doing different things, versus, okay, I'm doing that. Okay, no, I really need to see something different here. Okay, I guess we move it one more space. Does that open anything up? When you have to take those moments, and you consistently have to take those moments of looking at the board and thinking, what was open again? Because it isn't immediately visible on the board, that really impacts the play. But again, that's why I'm saying it now, because this is a prototype. Also, when you start looking at the inner workings and the inner mechanics of the game, you realize that the outer circle, well, it just goes open, not open, open, not open, open, not open. And that helps you remember what's open or not throughout the day, because that only shifts when the day shifts. And so you have access to those outer ring circles for a lot longer than the inner ring circles, which are constantly in flux, with only 3 open at any given time. And sometimes you can't even have a pathway into those. And so that makes me go, oh, okay, the outer ring isn't a modular board of 12 things. It's one half versus the other half, and you randomize those halves every game. It still provides that variability that I'm excited about. When you look a little bit more in depth into it, the allure of that variability kind of falls off. But yeah, other than that, the game's really solid. I wouldn't be reviewing it if it wasn't. I wouldn't be reviewing it if I hadn't had a good time in that initial demo. I would have said, thank you, I'm glad I have my mask on, goodbye. Thanks for the demo, see you never. But I see a lot of potential here for a nice, light, easy, accessible co-op that is fast and fun with some variable powers and some interesting villains to fight. And I definitely see a lot of potential here. It's just that one, I don't want to say nitpick. I think it's a little bit more significant than a nitpick, honestly. That really stands out to me. But if that were to change, then, you know, it's really fun. It's a game that takes place in stages. You start out with only 1 dice that you can roll at the bad villain, who can roll like 6 at the beginning anyway, and then progressively gets more and more difficult. And you say, okay, where can I go? What resources can I develop? How can I quickly develop my character and beef myself up for those later stages of the game where we're actually pursuing and attacking the monster and not just doing scarab cleaning. And I like that. The scarabs are reminiscent of Pandemic in terms of something that you have to monitor that will scurry out and try to infect the mansion and also limit those rooms. That's very exciting to me. And I don't even mind that it's a rondel, that you're constantly spinning this wheel. Because that gives a great sense of movement, and I think where it shines is that not all options are available to you. And there's so many times where I'm like, okay, well, I need to access this room, but if I do that, then the monster is going to be able to maybe run to Lady Weirdwood, and we know it's going to move and run on its next turn, so what should I do? What's the play here? And I like that those decisions come up. And so everything here works really well. It's just if you get bogged down a little bit by the fiddliness, or you can't see the rooms clearly like I couldn't see them, then that bogs down what is an exciting game and makes it a little bit of a slog at times. One other thing I should say in terms of ease of play, when I first got this game, because I hadn't played it in, I don't know, about a year after I'd played that first initial demo, I'd forgotten a lot about it, and I assumed I remembered everything, but I didn't. I invited Zach over to play with me, and I wasn't ready for him, and so I was still reading through the rule book, and I was like, okay, here's kind of like the outline. Let me just check some specifics. And then the player aid, Zach read the player aid, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to teach you the game. And Zach was like, oh, do we do this, 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 this? And I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, you could have just read the player aid because it literally told me 90% of everything that you told me from the rule book. And I think that's awesome too, a game that can get players to the table. Now, Zach's no slouch, he's played quite a few games, but there is an accessibility here that is really exciting. And that's also why I wanted to cover it, is because I feel like this is a really nice, accessible co-op. I feel like it gives a nice range of difficulty for a variety of skill levels as well. And the art style is just so delightfully delightful. I'll double down on it being delightful. The art style pulls me back in. The art style shows me the type of experience and reflects the type of experience that you are getting. And then there's a little bit of a bonus puzzle in there to really make you work. But above all, I didn't feel like it was too complex. I didn't feel like it was too difficult. And I think this is a game that you don't want to necessarily be too difficult because it's going to appeal to that wider crowd as well. So yeah, all in all, pretty positive on Weirdwood Manor. I'm thrilled that I got to play it again, even with the fiddliness and the speed of play. When I think about all the other components of it, it still makes me excited to get it out and play it again. So there you go. That's it. Hopefully this was helpful in deciding if Weirdwood Manor is right for you. It should be on Kickstarter right now at the time of this video's release. There'll be a link to it down below. And while you're down below, hit the like and subscribe because, you know, you're there already. Thanks so much for watching. My name's Chris George, and I don't have a catchphrase. But I do have to thank Zach for letting me steal his young adult protagonist magic school descriptor because you know what? It's apt.